Committee, I'm going to invite Brian Scarpelli, co-chair of the DAC, to open the meeting.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and welcome everyone, and welcome to the to all the viewers out there. Yes, I'm Brian Scarpelli with an organization called ACT, the App Association, and I'm one of two co-chairs for this fourth cycle of the FCC's Disability Advisory Committee. Very honored to be a part of this effort again. I should mention briefly my co-chair, Isadore, with the National Black Deaf Advocates, is located in Austin, Texas, which is experiencing some miraculous snowy weather right now, which has taken him offline. So he's not able to participate remotely for that reason, unfortunately. But just, I do want to note, I'm more than I'm really excited to be again co-chairing with Isadore, and I know he's very excited to be a part of it too. I should now very briefly. I just wanted to be very brief in the opening there and to welcome everyone, and to introduce very briefly. Acting Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel. We're honored to have you here to speak with us today, and I should stop talking and throw the microphone to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Isadore, who we hope is safe and well. It is my great pleasure and an honor to welcome you to the fourth term of the Disability Advisory Committee. Now, in my years serving as a commissioner, I've developed a deep appreciation and special fondness for the work this committee does. And there's a reason for that I want to explain, but it takes a bit of history to understand. You see, before I came to the agency, I served as counsel to the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. I worked on a range of technology and communications issues, from public safety to the digital television transition to broadband competition. Big things. But among the biggest and best was my work on the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act. You see, I was the staff responsible for helping write that bill and getting it through the committee and over the legislative finish line. It became law, as you all know. And back in the before days, when work was in person and not like it is right now at my dining room table, a signed copy of that law was on the wall right outside the entry to my office. I wanted everyone to see it. I wanted everyone to know, because laws like that are a reminder that we can use policy to make real progress. I know that idea might not be trendy now. As a nation, it's no secret we find ourselves with a lot of challenges. But I think we've done big things before. We can do them again. Of course, it takes more than a single law. After all, the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act itself is built on the concept of functional equivalency, and that's the foundation of communications policy under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I believe that policies that honor functional equivalency have made it possible for millions of Americans with hearing and speech impairments to have the right and ability to connect, communicate, and participate more fully in the world. But we can't rest on our laurels. Accessibility and functional equivalency cannot be afterthoughts. We need to give meaning to those notions in everything we do. And that includes, of course, the work of the Federal Communications Commission, especially during this pandemic. There is so much that this cruel virus has done. It has upended our day-to-day in too many ways to count. It has changed our relationship to technology. Broadband is no longer nice to have.
Currently unmuted. Press unmute my audio button. Jessica Rose, mute my audio.
It's need to have for everyone, everywhere. Access to video conferencing platforms has become critical, not only to keep up with colleagues, but also to connect with medical professionals and family while we remain isolated. Plus, emergency news and notifications are more important than ever to keep us apprised of the availability of vaccines and aware of new safety measures. In addition, the Commission's work to ensure the availability of telecommunications relay services, or TRS, for persons who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind, or have speech disabilities has had to evolve given the extraordinary circumstances presented by the pandemic. It has been an especially hard period for TRS providers because the pandemic has made it difficult for them to fully staff their call centers due to social distancing requirements and other safety restrictions affecting the availability and working conditions for communications assistance. Last year, the Commission granted TRS providers emergency waivers of certain rules to ensure that TRS is provided without interruption during the pandemic. So a bit of news. I have directed the agency to extend these waivers this week. We're going to continue to monitor the situation to ensure that TRS waivers will continue to be available as long as they are necessary, and that TRS providers also have a reasonable transition period to readjust post-pandemic. But let's not stop there. Please let us know what other issues in communications are arising that present problems for functional equivalency during this pandemic and beyond. We want to help address them because we know when we approve access to communications for millions of individuals with disabilities, we are all stronger as individuals, as communities, and as a nation. And with that, I will let your proceedings get underway. I want to thank you for serving on the Disabilities Advisory Committee. I can't wait to see the good work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chairwoman, for those wonderful remarks. Really appreciate your time and being here, your support. And I think it sets the stage wonderfully for what I think will be a really successful, another successful collaborative effort here for the DAC.
So do I. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Deborah, I hope I'm not wrong here, but I believe is Patrick going to give some remarks as well? Ah, there you are. Hi there.
Hello. Well, thank you very much, Brian. And thank you to Chairwoman Rosenworcel for giving us some remarks as we kick off this new term of the DAC. We're all very excited about what's to come on this term of the DAC. And as you launch the inaugural and virtual meeting of the fourth term of the Disability Advisory Committee, I want to extend my warmest congratulations and welcome to each one of you. I especially want to thank Brian and Isidore for graciously agreeing to reprise their roles as co-chairs of this important advisory group, and to the staff of the Disability Rights Office, including Deborah Patkin, the DAC's designated federal officer, and Will Schell, the DAC's deputy DFO, who have helped bring you all together today. And certainly our thoughts go out to Isidore and all the folks who are in Texas who have lost power and are in the cold now. We hope you get power restored soon and you stay safe and warm during that time. A number of you have served on prior DACs, and you've provided helpful and thoughtful recommendations to the Commission that highlight areas where accessibility is lacking or improvements could be made. I'm pleased that we have so many talented experts in this area who are willing to lend their expertise to the important accessibility issues of the day. I'm confident that this term of the DAC will continue to contribute significantly to the quality of work of the Commission. And I say this especially in light of the continuing pandemic that has transformed how all of us and our families live, work, attend school, and obtain health services. The importance of accessible communications and connectivity during the pandemic cannot be overstated. Without accessible video conferencing and communication technologies, an effective telework or learning environment would not be possible. Accessible and available broadband services enable telehealth programs and services for vulnerable populations, including individuals with disabilities. I'm pleased that today's committee meeting will examine these important issues and start to identify where there may be gaps to be filled in providing accessible communications during these unprecedented times. And with regards to the financial difficulties that many consumers are experiencing during the pandemic, you may have heard that Congress recently appropriated $3.2 billion for the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program to enable eligible households to receive a discount on the cost of broadband service and certain connected devices. The FCC will be kicking off the program soon, and we are currently engaging with various consumer stakeholders, including the disability community, to ensure that no one gets left offline. Please consider joining us in this effort by signing up to help us get the word out at fcc.gov/broadband benefit. As the program is developed, the website will be a resource for consumers and stakeholders to get the latest information on the emergency broadband benefit. The DAC's recent third term ended with a virtual meeting, and it is my hope that in the not too distant future, we will be able to meet again in person in the new Commission headquarters building in DC. Although based on the inclement weather that we've been experiencing here in DC, and despite our continuing mandatory telework policy at the FCC, our new DC headquarters building is closed today. So it's actually a good thing that we're all meeting remotely and hopefully again, all staying safe and warm in our homes. Thank you again for your service on the DAC. And with that, I'll turn it over to Diane Burstein, Deputy Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, for her remarks. Thanks again.
Thank you, Patrick, and thanks to Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel for your remarks. And I'd like to add my welcome to all of you, and thanks for joining us on Forgoing a Snow Day and joining us via Zoom today. There are a number of new faces and many veterans of prior DACs here today, and we're grateful for the level of interest and commitment that you've shown in choosing to serve on this advisory committee, which brings together so many exceptional people to help the FCC do its important work in the area of accessibility. It also provides an important forum for a variety of different stakeholders to gather together and learn from each other. And when we get to meet again in person, engage in interesting conversations over lukewarm cups of coffee. We look forward to having those opportunities for future meetings. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of the incredibly talented and dedicated staff of the Disability Rights Office, some of whom you'll hear from today, and to thank the interpreters, captioners, and members of the CMR staff who are instrumental in making this afternoon's meeting a success. There's a lot to cover today, so I'll end my thanks there and turn things over to Deborah Patkin, the designated federal officer for the DAC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. This is Deborah Patkin. Thanks again, Diane, as well as Patrick and Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel for that warm welcome. We will officially now launch the fourth term meeting of the DAC. Congratulations again to all of the members who have been selected and appointed here. I'm looking forward to working with you moving forward. As Diane mentioned, I am Deborah Patkin, and I am the designated federal officer, or DFO, as it is called, for the DAC. I also have a deputy DFO, that is Will Shell, who is now working furiously behind the scenes, ensuring that the meeting moves smoothly. I also want to acknowledge our two co-chairs, Brian Scarpelli, who we've already seen, and as well as Dora Nyangabo. And as we were already made aware by Brian, unfortunately located in Texas, Isdor's unable to join us today. We hope that he and everyone in Texas is staying as safe as they can. We do need to take a few minutes to review some of our housekeeping items at the top of the meeting, processes and procedures to make sure our meetings remain accessible, as well as efficient and effective. After we go through those, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Disability Advisory Committee, a brief history about the types of work that the DAC does, and we're going to try to keep that as brief as possible. First, this meeting is open to the public, currently by live streaming at fcc.gov/live. Public participation is welcome in this meeting. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, there is time reserved for that later in the afternoon. You can contact us with that comment or question via email at livequestions@fcc.gov. That's livequestions@fcc.gov. And we'll be monitoring that email, and we will present your comment or question during the public participation period. Now we'll review some of our communication protocols for the meeting. Of course, we intend for all meetings everywhere to be accessible, but we need to be very mindful, in particular during our DAC meetings, to conduct ourselves in an accessible way. Our members have a variety of different disabilities, and we want to ensure that members of the public interested in participating and observing the meeting can have access to all of the necessary information that they need in order to be able to participate. There are certainly different methods of accommodation and consideration that can make it complicated to ensure that everyone is going to retain access. So it's going to require a concerted effort for all of us to ensure full participation from everyone. I can't emphasize this enough, but accessibility is the top priority of our committee and its proceedings. Not only a responsibility of our accommodations providers like interpreters and captioners, but for each one of us as individual members and participants, and it benefits everyone in the long run. So in a virtual environment, it does require us to follow some more strict protocols and processes. So in terms of video, and we're all already embodying this, but please make sure, and I'm going to explain for clarity, that we will have video on for the individuals on the floor and the working interpreter as well. If you don't have the floor, please make sure that your video is off and that your audio is muted as well. Reason being, the screen size becomes a bit of an issue in terms of understanding sign language. If we have multiple videos on at the same time, you get those small thumbnail videos, and it can become difficult to understand and follow the interpreter or the person who is signing. With respect to turn taking and ensuring that everyone's able to participate, we ask that one person have the floor at any given time. And please don't either unmute yourself or turn your video on until the co-chair calls on you that you have the floor. When you come on, please make sure you take a brief pause to ensure that interpreters and everyone are ready to interpret for you. I'm guilty of this and myself, but give a pause when you can, just to ensure that we're all ready to go. And also do identify yourself by name before you begin your remarks, for the benefit of people who are listening on the phone, people who are looking at the interpretation, and for our captioner. If you are going to be speaking for an extended period, try to take a brief pause here and there to ensure that all of our accommodations providers are able to keep up. Those of you who are in the Zoom meeting, please try to use the Zoom hand raising feature if you do want the floor, and the chair can then identify you as having your hand raised and call on you to take the floor. And once you have finished with your turn on the floor, then again, please lower your hand, turn off your video, and mute your microphone once more. Shortly, we're going to have our co-chairs leading introductions for all of our members. So when the chair calls your organization, please only have one representative of your organization. Turn on your video and audio to introduce yourself. We will follow alphabetical order according to our participants list in the Zoom client. So you should be able to track when your turn is coming up. That will be the same protocol for the facilitated discussion later this afternoon that our co-chairs are going to be facilitating, and again, calling on people from the participants list in alphabetical order. Now, to talk a little bit more about the DAC, this DAC, the Disability Advisory Committee, is one type of federal advisory committee that is formed when a federal agency is interested in garnering input from people with relevant expertise on a given subject. Federal advisory committees have been around for quite some time, almost since America was born and founded. There was an effort to look for more advice to federal agencies during the Whiskey Rebellion, for example, in 1794. So you are now becoming part of a more than 200-year-old tradition, which is quite impressive. I'm sure those of you who've served on different federal advisory committees have heard this spiel before, but I've myself found it fairly interesting. For a long time, federal advisory committees had no rules governing their operation or formation until Congress decided to pass the Federal Advisory Committee Act, also called FACA, F-A-C-A, in the 1970s, to ensure that these various advisory committees were going to be able to remain objective and balanced, as well as transparent and public. The Disability Advisory Committee does have to adhere to those FACA requirements, and we'll be learning more about those specific requirements under FACA from Paula Silberthau, who is from the FCC's Office of General Counsel, or OGC. She will also explain some of your responsibilities with regards to record keeping in association with the committee. The Federal Advisory Committee Act requires that there be an agency representative, that is a federal employee who is in charge of assisting with the logistics and operation of that advisory committee, and to serve as a liaison between the committee and the agency. That is the DFO role, and that is my role with this committee. So basically ensuring that we're following the FACA requirements, that we're following all of our ethical requirements. Full DAC meetings, that is meetings of the entire membership, are open to the public, as you know. Regardless of whether they're being held in person or virtually, they must be open to the public. For in-person meetings, there is an option of either attending in person to participate, in terms of public participation, that is. So you can come in public. You can also view online. And for our online meetings, unfortunately, there's only the one option, but the public is still able to participate and make their voice heard via email. Our records with regards to the DAC are also required to be public online at www.fcc.gov/DAC DAC. You will see there our charter, our meeting minutes for our full DAC meetings, and recommendations that have been adopted by the full committee, as well as our member roster. The DAC was initially founded in 2014, and each term of the DAC lasts 2 years, which puts us in our 4th term of the DAC right now. Technically, this started in December of 2020 when the charter was renewed. So officially, that's when the 4th term began, and will continue until December of 2022. The makeup of the committee is, of course, disability experts like yourselves who can advise the commission on accessibility issues that the FCC is seeking input on. Disability issues, of course, can be very complicated and challenging, And we are certainly very appreciative of having access to your expertise and talents in helping us unravel some of these challenges that the Commission and others are facing. The DAC will also have working groups that will focus on developing or working on specific recommendations. When the DAC is assigned topics from the Commission, working groups are then formed in order to discuss and work on those issues. Last term, we had 2 working groups at any given time. And once a working group has finished their assigned task, they will then disband so that a new working group can be formed in its place and potentially with different members as well. To become a member of a particular working group, one has to have expertise on the subject that that working group is meant to be addressing. And each working group will have its own individual chair of that group. Because we're only talking about 2 working groups at a time as of this last term, then there may be times when a given member does not have any assigned task or working group, and the number of participants on these working groups is by necessity limited. So we can't have everyone serve on every potential working group. It is no statement on preference. It is simply looking for experts who have relevant expertise and knowledge with regards to a particular topic in order to balance out the membership of a working group. And in the event you have any questions or concerns about working group membership or any tasks, please feel free to reach out to me. In the event that you are not on a working group, one is still a full participant in the DAC and votes on final recommendations at the full proceedings of these full meetings as well. Working groups typically have internal deliberations and then bring a recommendation to the full DAC for consideration. Currently, we have no tasks, so please no one worry that you have not been assigned a task or a working group at this point. Once we receive the tasks, we will certainly let everyone in the DAC know. Working groups will convene online. This was something that was regardless of pandemics and mandatory telework or what have you, and typically have bi-weekly meetings. Each of these working groups must also have a federal facilitator there, which is typically someone from the Disability Rights Office at the FCC, who again helps facilitate the working group meetings. Those working group meetings are closed to the public per FACA rules. And I believe that sums up the proceedings of the DAC from my end for now. I want to thank again all the staff who've worked so very hard to ensure that this meeting is going to proceed smoothly with a lot of moving pieces, and very thankful to Will Shell, to Robert McConnell, who are providing some Zoom support to us behind the scenes, as well as Gerard Williams, who is leading the interpreting team, ensuring their communication is efficient and effective, as well as the CMR team for arranging our stream and our captioning. And thank you so much for that. And with that said, I think that we will proceed. Unless there are any comments or questions, we can move on to our agenda. Okay, Brian?
Thank you very much. Great to have the acting chairwoman provide some insight to us, and also to hear from Patrick and from Diane, and thank you for that overview there, Deborah. I did a poor job of introducing Patrick. I apologize for that. Patrick Weber, the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau Chief there. Sorry, Patrick. But really do appreciate everything so far. Yes, this is great. I think next on our agenda item, the next item on our agenda is introductions of you all, the members of the DAC. So, you know, I think as Deborah was mentioning here, we can go alphabetically by organization name, that is, I believe. And I'm thinking here that everyone, we'd all really benefit from, you know, getting to know and to know each of you. If you could briefly introduce yourself, your organization, and ideally keep it quite short. As you may, if you see further on in the agenda, there'll be opportunities to provide substantive priorities and things like that. So just for this agenda item, if we could keep things really short, just introduce yourself and your organization. As it happens, my organization is the first alphabetically. So I can start. ACT, the App Association, is my organization. Brian Scarpelli is my name. Again, happy. The App Association is a not-for-profit trade association that represents several thousand small business software developers and high-tech companies located all across America. We have a huge priority for advancing accessibility and across any modality that we can, and really pleased to be here. The next organization is the American Council for the Blind. Clark, are you here? Oh, okay. I don't see Clark. Okay. Clark Ratchful with ACB. American Foundation for the Blind.
Hi, this is Sarah Miller. I'm Senior Advisor for Public Policy and Research at the American Foundation for the Blind. It's a real pleasure to be here. AFB is a national nonprofit that advocates for a world of no limits for people who are blind or have low vision. Thank you.
3 to 5 years, right? So this is a multi-year sort of initiative.
And hi, this is Clark Rockfall, the Director of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs for the American Council of the Blind.
Great. Thank you, Clark. And Sarah. Next on the alphabetical list is Apple.
Hi, everyone. Maria Kirby, Senior Policy Counsel with Apple. I'm pleased to be back on the DAC for another term. Thanks.
Wonderful. The ARC.
Hi, everybody. This is Abe Raffi from the ARC. The ARC is the largest provider of services to people with disabilities, especially intellectual and developmental disabilities around the U.S. We have about 600 locations, 120,000 staff, and we serve every year about 1 million people with disabilities and their family members. And I'm really looking forward to making good things happen here on the DAC.
Great. AT&T.
Hi, Linda Vanderloop, AT&T, and I am looking forward to participating in this term of the DAC.
Wonderful. Bridge Multimedia Corporation.
Hi, I'm Wendy Sapp. I am Senior Director of Research at Bridge Multimedia. We are a New York City-based accessibility company working with commercial, education, government, and corporate sectors to make 21st century media available to everyone. And we look forward to working with everyone.
Great, thanks. Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Organization.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Hill. And I'm the president of the Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Organization. And CPADO, the Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Association organization, wants to ensure that people have increased access to communications and telecommunications for those who have cerebral palsy and deafness, as well as other disabilities as well. Our goal is to have equivalent access to telecommunications, as not lesser access for those who have multiple disabilities and functional equivalents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mark. City of Boston. I think you may be, it looks like you're speaking, but you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Hi, this is Carl Richardson representing the Boston Disability Commission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Clear captions.
Hello, everybody. Michael Strecker with Clear Captions. I'm the Vice President of Regulatory and Strategic Policy for the company. And I, too, am excited and looking forward to serving on another term of the DAC. Thank you.
Great. Next is Comcast Corporation and NBC Universal Media.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Lidkowski, Vice President of Accessibility at Comcast. Happy to be back for the 4th term of the DAC and look forward to working with everyone.
Excellent. Communication Service for the Deaf.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Robinson. I'm Vice President of CSD's Contact Centers. We are a subcontractor for one of the TRS providers, and we have a lot of those communication assistants that Chairwoman Rosenworcel was referring to. So nice to see everyone here. Looking forward to meeting people in person one day, hopefully, and getting to know you better, but very excited to be on the committee.
Wonderful. Consumer Technology Association.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Nemeth. I'm a Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs for CTA, which is the trade association representing the U.S. consumer technology industry. And we also produce the trade show CES every year. And we are happy to be a member of the DAC once again and look forward to working with all of you.
Great. Convo Communications.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Montgomery, and I am the Chief Legal Officer at Convo Communications. We provide video relay services, and we're really thrilled to be here. This will be my first time serving.
Great. Welcome. Next is CTIA, the Wireless Association.
Hi, everybody. Kara Graves. I'm an Assistant Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at CTIA. We are a trade association that represents the wireless industry. My colleague, Sarah Leggin, will be joining us later as well as the alternate, and we're very pleased to be on the DAC for another term. This is our 4th time running, so very excited to be working with you all.
Great, thanks. Next is Deafblind Citizens in Action.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is George Stern, Acting President of Deafblind Citizens in Action, DBCA, which is a 501c3 consumer organization representing deafblind people and striving to provide equal opportunities through advocacy on education, technology, and other policy areas. I'm looking forward to being on this 4th term of the DAC and doing good work. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Next is DCAPTA. Oh, I think I see you speaking, but you're muted, Judy.
Oops. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I apologize. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Judy Matthews, and I'm here representing DCAPTA. It's my first time here on the DAC committee, And we focus on making media accessible to people with disabilities, particularly people who are Hispanics. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
Next is Hamilton Relay.
Hello, this is Beth Slough with Hamilton Relay. I am the Director of Account Management and Compliance for the company, and we provide a variety of telecommunications, relay services, and communication accessibility services nationwide. It's a pleasure to serve. Thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Next is Hearing Loss Association of America.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Hamlin. I am the Director of Public Policy at Hearing Loss Association of America. We are an organization for and by people with hearing loss, and we have representatives across the country. And we provide information, education, advocacy, and support. And I'm really happy to be here again and to see you all one at a time.
Great. Next is IBM.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Mueller with IBM. I'm in the accessibility organization within the company, and I'm the Accessibility Standards Program Manager. And this is my first time serving on the DAC.
Great. Thank you. Next is Mesmo Corporation InnoCaption.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs for InnoCaption. InnoCaption is a mobile IPCTS provider. This is our first term serving on the DAC, and we're very excited to be here.
Great. National Association for State Relay Administration. I don't see them. Okay. Next is National Association.
Hi, this is Travis Doherty from NASRA, National Association of State Relay Administrators. The State Relay Administrators Association focuses on including individuals with oversight authority over different state relay operations or a 501c3 organization. Thank you so much. Looking forward to working with everyone.
Great. Thank you. I'm sorry I moved too quickly there. Appreciate that. Next is the National Association of Broadcasters.
Hello, my name is Josh Pyle. I'm the General Counsel for Marinus Local Media Group and NAB's representative on the DAC. NAB is the trade association of radio and television operators in local markets across the U.S. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Okay, next is the National Association of the Deaf.
Hi, I am Zainab Al-Kebsi. I am Policy Counsel for the National Association of the Deaf, or NAD. NAD is the oldest national civil rights organization in the United States, founded in 1809 by and for deaf and hard of hearing people, and serves and represents about 48 million deaf or hard of hearing people in the United States. I'm very excited to serve once again and looking forward to working with you all. For those of you who are in remote areas, please stay safe and stay warm.
Thanks, Zainab. I echo that. I hope everyone's doing okay out there. Next is Isidore's organization, National Black Deaf Associates. But as we mentioned, he's unable to connect because of that weather right now. But I did want to just mention NBDA very quickly. After that is the National Emergency Number Association.
Hi, and good morning from California. I am Richard Ray, and I am the co-chair of the Accessibility Committee for the National Emergency Numbering Association, or NENA, N-E-N-A, whose goal is to provide direct access to 911 emergency services as well as general emergency services using technologies that we are well familiar with. And that may include video communications as well as some other types of communications modalities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I made an error there in breezing past the NBDA. Is Yushela here for NBDA? I do apologize if I skipped you there. Okay. Well, we can. if I'm too hasty, if I'm moving on too fast, please do chime in, or we can come back. Great. Okay. So thanks, Richard. Next is National Federation of the Blind.
Hi, everyone. My name is Everett Bacon. I represent the National Federation of the Blind, the premier membership and advocacy organization of blind Americans, headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland, and with affiliates in every state, including Puerto Rico. It's a pleasure to be here on my 4th term on the DAC and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Everett. Great. Next, NCTA, the Internet and Television Association.
Hi, this is Jacqueline Clary. I am an alternate for NCTA, and I just wanted to say we're really looking forward to being on the DAC this term. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, next is Perkins School for the Blind.
Hello, I'm Kristen Lee, representing the Perkins School for the Blind. This is my 1st term, and I'm the 3rd representative from Perkins.
Great. Thank you very much. Sorensen Communications.
Good afternoon. This is Michael Maddox. I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs at Sorensen. And we are the providers of Sorensen Video Relay and Caption Call IPCTS service. And very pleased to be able to contribute to the efforts of the DAC. Thank you.
Excellent. Next is Telecommunications for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Hi, my name is Eric Kaika with TDI. TDI advances the interests of all deaf and hard of hearing people in areas of information and communications technology. I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to working with everyone. I am also joined by my counsel, Blake Reed. So I'd like to have him introduce himself briefly as well.
Hey, Blake Reed from the Tech Law and Policy Clinic at Colorado Law, here for TDI. Good to see everybody again. Nice to be back for round number 4.
Great. Thank you both there. Okay, next, T-Mobile.
Coming off of mute. Thank you for your patience. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelley Blakeney, and I'm a director with T-Mobile's Government Affairs Department. For this term, I'll be joined by my colleague, Dennis Selznick, in representing the company on the committee. We're absolutely thrilled to be here to serve, and we look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is Verizon Communications.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Zach Bastian of Verizon Communications, Manager of Strategic Alliances. It's been a thrill to serve on previous DACs, and I'm so excited to work with everyone again.
Great. And ZP Better Together.
Hi, this is Greg Leibach from ZP, Z and Purple, and I'm very excited to be back here and representing ZP Better Together.
Great, thank you. So,
and hello, this is Mark Stern, also with ZP Better Together. I am the Director of Product Management with ZP, and this will be my 4th term serving on the DAC as well. Looking forward to working with everyone again.
And absolutely, thank you both there with ZP and
this is Usharia. Good afternoon, everyone. As I said, this is Ushaila Debari, and I am here representing NBDA. Thank you very much for having me here.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Okay, so that is the list of our members. Remember that we also have ex officio federal government representatives, and I think we can do the same here if it's okay. There are 4 on the DAC. So the first I would put out there, again, these are alphabetically, is the U.S. Access Board.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's good to be back for this 4th iteration of the DAC. My name is Tim Cregan. I'm a senior accessibility specialist here at the Access Board. I'm joined by my colleague, Bruce Bailey. He and I worked on the most recent update of the 508 standards, and we've served on the DAC together for the previous 4 iterations. Welcome, and we look forward to working together with everyone again. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Excellent. Next, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services.
Hello, everyone. I'm representing U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services, and my name is Brianne Berger. Very thrilled and honored to be serving on the Disability Advisory Committee for my 2nd term. In this 4th term of the DAC. My colleague, Tara Kudrelli, is also joining us today. So I'm very excited that she's be able to be with us today. I'm very excited to be working with you all moving forward, and thank you.
Wonderful, thanks. Next is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Community Living.
Yes, hello. My name is Steve Bauer, and I'm a program officer for the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research under the ACL. And with my colleague Lisa Bothwell, I'll be representing the ACL. It's a number of our grantees have been members or substantial contributors to past iterations of the DAC, and I'm very pleased to represent the ACL on the DAC and to continue this trend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Kuby. I am from FEMA, Communications Access Specialist and Certified Deaf Interpreter. I'm very happy to be continuing to represent FEMA here. This will be my first time individually representing the organization.
Great. Well, that is our list of all members, both full members and ex officio federal representatives. Thank you all once again. I hope that helped. We all got to briefly introduce ourselves there. I believe that the next item here on the agenda calls for me to turn it over to Paula Silberthau from the Office of the General Counsel for the FCC to talk to us about the Federal Advisory Committee Act and record management obligations.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. sort of unfortunately, many of you who've served before have probably heard me give this short presentation, but hopefully it'll be valuable, particularly to those who I've not talked with before. So first of all, in case you were not aware of this, we operate under a federal statute and under regulations promulgated by GSA. The Federal Advisory Committee Act, which is Appendix 2 to Title V, governs the operations of most federal advisory committees unless otherwise exempted by statute. And it has several guiding principles, including openness in government, diversity and balance in membership, and public accountability. So with that in mind, just a couple of little relevant points is that under the Act, we're required to give timely notices of meetings. We usually do that by posting PNs and perhaps using social media. That's the most practical. But we also are required by law, since this is a very old statute, to publish notices of our meetings in the Federal Register. I mention that in part because if something comes up and any of you feel that there's some need for an emergency meeting, of course you get in touch with your DFO, who I think is Will, and explain why you think it's necessary to have a quicker meeting. But just keep in mind, we are bound by law to provide 15 days notice. Also, for the meeting of you folks here, which I'll call sort of the parent committee meeting of the DAC, public attendance is required, and that's part of why we have to give the public notice. But if for any reason there is an important cause for meetings to be closed, that can be requested. I don't think that will arise in your situation, but it could be in cases where there's information that involves commercial trade secrets, classified government materials, or any national security matter. There are somewhat elaborate procedures to close portions of the meeting, and no surprise, we would have to announce that in advance. But if you think there's something coming up where you, in your case, maybe would be discussing trade secrets, please let your DFO be aware of that. As you may know, we're required to keep minutes of meetings, which we often can satisfy by doing a transcript. And we have to retain copies of all records of the committee, which I'll get to a little bit later. And these are available for inspection and copying, provided you give some notice to your DFO. One thing I did want to mention before getting into a couple other things is that it is very helpful if you are able to, in advance, provide an alternate member to serve on your behalf in the event that you're unable to attend a meeting, whether of the full committee or one of the working groups. So if you have not and the reason we need to know in advance is we conduct, as you're aware, a vetting process by our ethics team. So if you've not done so in advance, I always encourage people to find an alternate member who can substitute if you get sick or have a conflict in your schedule or something like that. The role of the committee chair and vice chair, these folks mainly serve as your focal point, your major point of contact. And the committee, in addition to the DFO, and the committee chairs and vice chairs often work with the agency DFO to establish informal working groups. They also, as you can see, conduct all committee meetings and may suggest meeting agenda items. So if you have items you think are appropriate for the agenda, you can contact your chair, your vice chair, and or the DFO. The designated federal officer, or DFO, has a lot of important duties, including calling the meetings, approving the agendas, chairing sometimes, and closing meetings as required, maintaining all committee records, and making sure that there are either transcripts or videos recorded of the meetings, or simply committee minutes. And any questions you might have as you roll along about the operations of the committee or its working groups should be directed in the first instance to your DFO. Record keeping. I'm just going to read this out because we actually have some record keeping experts who are not available to attend today. So records need to be maintained in accordance with a specific general records schedule, which in our case is called 6.2. And the schedule is media neutral. So that means it applies to all records, regardless of the format. So it could be paper records, emails, it could be audiovisual, and it could be other electronic records. So committee members, each of you are responsible for ensuring that your DFO has complete and accurate records that document your committee's activities, as well as the final recommendations of any working groups. In addition, there should be documentation to the extent possible of internal deliberations and final decisions of the committee and its working groups. Now, this is important. The committee members should copy your DFO on all emails and other communications you have with each other. And this is true whether it's the business of your full committee or, once you form them, your working groups. And that is the primary way we can ensure that we have complete records available at the agency and we can satisfy our obligations to satisfy our record keeping requirements. So please, for me, it makes life easier, just copy the DFO on all your internal communications relating to the DAC. A lot of people ask, why can informal working groups be closed when the parent DAC meetings like this one need to be open? The answer is that informal working groups are primarily to gather information and to make recommendations to the full parent committee. The informal working groups cannot speak on behalf of you as a full committee. So informal working groups make important recommendations, but they then pass through to the DFO and will normally get scheduled for a vote at the full committee meeting. Now here's a couple things that informal working groups can't do. As I said, everything has to come up for a vote before the full committee. So informal working groups cannot function as a de facto parent advisory committee. A working group head cannot say, speak to the press and say, this is the view of the DAC. The view of the DAC comes after a vote of the full DAC, and those votes are what really speak for the DAC as a whole. And therefore, it's important that working groups bring all their stuff to the DAC and that the DAC have a full discussion, review, vigorous debate on those recommendations. And if it were the case that something went to the full DAC and you just had a meeting and everyone said, yes, that sounds good, and we all vote to approve it, and there was no detailed discussion of what the recommendations were about, or questions, or any kind of debate, then it could be considered that the full DAC had merely rubber stamped the advice of the working group. And the problem with that is that, in a sense, the working group would have been substituted for the DAC, and yet its meetings were closed. So that would, after the fact, become a violation of the Advisory Committee Act, and it might make it difficult for the FCC to ever rely on those rubber stamped recommendations. So just very important that when recommendations come up, that someone from the working group explain them and respond to questions and have a full discussion, and not just rubber stamp things that are coming up from a working group. So following on from that, when a working group makes recommendations, they should never be sent directly to the full commission. They always must go through the full DAC. Another concern that comes up frequently is that often people are interested in doing surveys, particularly working groups, to get more information on how the public feels about different things. Because the DAC is sort of an arm of the FCC, and because the FCC is subject to the Paperwork Reduction Act, the DAC or its subgroups cannot just go out and do surveys, because there's a process for getting permission from OMB to conduct surveys. So if you feel you need to reach out to members of the public, to other institutions or whatever, to get further information in the form of what you might consider a survey, please, before you do anything like that, please immediately get in touch with your DFO or your liaison on the working group, and they will get in touch with people like me at OGC, and will evaluate whether the survey is going out to so many people that it would fall within the constraints of the PRA. The typical rule, I believe, is if it's 9 people or less, it's not considered a survey, but if it's 10 or more, it is. I could be off by one number. But if there's a violation of the PRA, the agency is barred from considering that information. And there are many other ways of getting public input, including public notices with very general, non-specific questions on a topic, or just limiting the distribution of your questions to 9 people or less. Let's see. But as I said before, so long as your meetings are conducted properly, informal working groups are not subject to the open meeting requirements. An additional point is that working groups should not have a quorum of the members of the DAC as members. And that's because if you have a quorum or more, it can be argued that the recommendations of the working group, since they have so many members in it, preordains the review and vote of the parent DAC. So that's why we have some limitations on who can serve and size. Okay, 2 other quick things. One is that the ex parte rules apply to communications that members of the DAC may have to decision makers at the FCC, whether staff or commissioners. Because of that, our federal advisory groups typically issue a public notice to exempt the group from the ex parte rules. And as I sit here, I'm not sure whether that has been done already for your group. And sometimes we issue ones that apply to all future meetings of the group as well under new charters. But that's something we can check. And your DFO can tell you whether we've issued the exemption yet. Also, this exemption on the need to file letters that describe meetings with decision makers, this exemption only applies when someone is speaking on behalf of the DAC. So let's say you're Verizon and you're speaking as the chair of a subcommittee, and you're meeting with a commissioner or staff member. The exemption, if it's been issued so far, would apply to that meeting. But if you're the same Verizon person and you are speaking just on behalf of Verizon and giving Verizon's views on something, then obviously the exemption would not apply to that second meeting. So you have to be, for the exemption to apply, you have to be representing and speaking on behalf of the DAC. Okay, final wrap up here on sometimes, and it's been more frequent recently, people who are members of our advisory committees or working groups have been asked to write letters to the editor or speak to reporters about what the advisory committee is doing. That is fine, but please check in and give a heads up to your DFO first. It's very important that if you're talking about a pending topic on which there hasn't been a vote, that you could say factually, this is coming up if it's been announced and that's public, and you can give your own personal views of how the issue should be resolved, but you should make clear in any media presentations that your views are simply your individual views, and to make sure to qualify your presentation to explain you are not representing the views of all of the members of the DAC. That problem has arisen before. Someone was the only one with a particular view on some issues, and 20 people had totally different views, but they wrote a letter to the editor that said that they were the head of a working group, and here is what the right answer was to something, and their fellow members got extremely upset, as did the commission. But mainly other people who disagreed with them were pretty angry that they had sort of represented their view as being the formal view of the entire advisory committee. But if you talk to your DFO in advance, they can review these rules of the game. I think that's it. But if someone had any questions, I'm happy to take them, or if there's specific questions, if you get in touch with your DFO, he can relay the questions to me. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you, Paula. I am looking for a raised hand here, and I do not see one.
Okay, great. I'll get out of here then. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Comprehensive, very informative presentation. We appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. So at this point in the agenda, we have a break. We have a 10-minute break. So we are about 10 minutes behind schedule, which is not too bad. And why don't we have that 10-minute break now? So we'll resume at the hour, if that works. Please correct me if we should do something else, Deborah. But that sound okay, everyone? Okay, great. 10-minute break. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. This is, we're resuming after our break today, February 18th, 2021, the kickoff meeting for the fourth cycle of the FCC Disability Advisory Committee. We've gotten a lot done so far here. Jumping back into the agenda, I'm Brian, for anyone jumping in late or something, I'm one of the two co-chairs, Brian Scarpelli, hi. jumping back into the agenda here, we next have an overview and update from the FCC's Disability Rights Office, and pleased to welcome once again Susie Rosen-Singleton, Chief of the DRRO, and Elliot Greenwald, Deputy Chief of the DRRO.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian. Welcome and congrats on your inaugural meeting of this 4th term of the Disability Advisory Committee. We do have weighty work still to do ahead of us in light of this pandemic. The pandemic has taught us that accessibility is not only ideal, but it is literally vital for our health and safety. You have stepped into a role of not just of a benefactor, but as a first-line responder in ensuring accessibility everywhere. We all have stories, and we need to continue to share them about how accessibility enabled individuals with disabilities to obtain telehealth services in the safety of their homes, to allow our children with disabilities to attend school remotely, and to allow employees with disabilities to telework or not. Many still experience barriers. Millions of individuals with disabilities count on us to work together to ensure everyone remains safe and healthy with accessibility measures available in all life activities. We look forward to engaging with you and thank you for your crucial collaboration during such unprecedented times. We do have limited time, so I thought I would share only a few highlights. Since the last DAC meeting was 4 months ago, much has happened, but this is your inaugural meeting, so I thought it would be useful to provide a quick primer on DRRO's scope in 3 major spaces. The first is modern communications, which is advanced communication services, hearing aid compatibility of phones, and telecommunications enabled equipment, real-time text, relay services, video relay services, speech-to-speech, text-based relay like IP caption telephone service, technology transitions, telecommunication services and equipment. We also distribute annually $10 million to states and territories for connectivity for low-income deaf-blind eligible individuals through the National Deaf-Blind Equipment Distribution Program. The second, we have video programming, which is audio description, closed captioning from television, internet, or the display of captioning on equipment, and television and set-top box controls, menus, and program guides. Thirdly, we have emergency communications, which is communications with emergency 911 centers, and notifications such as the emergency notifications through the emergency alert system, also the wireless emergency alerts, and emergency information through the television broadcast. So now I will just give you 4 very quick highlights to show that what we have been working on so that we can move along to the facilitated discussion. The first is in October, we did adopt rules to expand the amount of audio description programming on television. Starting January 1st of 2021, we will phase in 10 additional designated market areas every year for the next 4 years. So we will expand from 61 markets to 100 markets. In 2023, the Commission will evaluate whether or not to expand the markets for an additional 10 markets every year beyond the top 100. And thanks to you and your recommendations, we are also modernizing the terminology for audio descriptions. Previously, it was video descriptions, and we no longer are using that term. Second is 988, the suicide hotline, accessibility. That was in July. The FCC did designate 988 as a 3-digit number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that is meant to be ready by July 16th, 2022. We have received a petition from Communication Equality Advocates, which is a coalition of consumer organizations and academics for partial reconsideration of the order. In their petition, they request that the FCC revise and mandate text to 988 and direct video calling requirements on the same timeline as voice calls, excuse the interpreter. We are looking forward to seeing what comes from that. Thirdly, we have released in January, the Enforcement Bureau issued an enforcement advisory to remind emergency alerting system participants about their obligation to comply with the EAS rules, including ensuring accessibility requirements. And we've also encouraged consumers to reach out to us if they have any experience with inaccessibility in regards to EAS. The last one, which you've already heard quite a bit about today, as Chairwoman Rosenworcel already explained, excuse the interpreter, Chief Weber, about the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. We had $3.2 billion that was set up for a program from Congress to help low-income consumers access the internet. We're seeking comment on how to do so and how to really ensure that those eligible consumers do get the money to access the internet. And how can we partner with all of you as stakeholders to get the word out about this opportunity for all of your members? So we have set up a website, which is www.fcc.gov/broadband-benefit. And with that, I will pass it over to Elliot. And thank you again for all that you do.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Susie. I'm going to mention a few things that have been going on with TRS since the prior DAC finished its work. We'll back up to on November 19th, the Commission issued a public notice seeking comment on 2 petitions for reconsideration of the IPCTS rate order. That's the order that was released on October 2nd. IDT is asking the Commission to recalibrate the contribution rate as a result of the, arguing that it should be recalibrated because there were some reductions in IPCTS rates since, after the contribution rate was calculated. The other petition was filed by T-Mobile on behalf of Sprint Accessibility, and they are arguing in favor of rate tiers rather than a unitary rate each year. And as you know, the Commission had decided to go with a unitary rate each year for IPCTS in the rate order. We are awaiting Federal Register publication so that we'll to announce the comment dates. And we expect this one to be published we've already received some edits back from Federal Register. So we expect this one to be published very shortly. And the comment period is 15 days for comments and 10 days for replies. So the comment period should be coming up pretty quickly. On November 20th, the Commission released a notice of proposed rulemaking to broaden the contribution base for VRS and IP relay to include intrastate revenues in addition to what's already included, which are the interstate revenues. And this would therefore align what's being done for VRS and IP relay if the commission adopts a report and order to align it with the way it's being done for IPCTS. We are awaiting Federal Register publication on this one as well. We're not sure when that will be published, but hopefully it will be published soon. On December 11th, the Bureau CGB issued an order granting InnoCaption authority to provide IPCTS using automatic speech recognition. And as many of you know, InnoCaption has been providing for several years IPCTS with use of CAs. So this order permits them to provide IPCTS using both methodologies. On February 8th, CGB issued a PN announcing the comment dates for the IPCTS metrics FNPRM. That was part of the October 2nd order because that had been published in the Federal Register. And so comments on IPCTS metrics are due March 3rd and replies are due April 2nd. So you still have time to file your comments on that. And for some late breaking news, for those of you who listen to Acting Chairwoman Rosenwurzel's remarks, she mentioned that that she instructed the staff to to release an order to extend the TRS pandemic waivers. That order was released this afternoon. And the pandemic waivers are now extended through August 31st. And now I'll turn the floor back to Brian.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you both, Susie and Elliot, for that update. And I don't see a hand raised for a question or anything like that. So appreciate you all coming in here and sharing that information with us. Excellent. The next item on the agenda is a facilitated discussion about accessible communications for individuals with disabilities during the pandemic and about lessons learned. Just a brief a brief introduction here for me about how hopefully this can go. I'll again, going alphabetically by organization, I can call on each voting member to provide a response to the question, what are your organizational concerns and priorities about accessible communications during the pandemic and any lessons learned? That's basically the question being posed to each of you. We thought we'd go, again, alphabetically by each organization and ask that they provide some thoughts on that question. The one, just a bit of scoping with your answer. If you could please keep your response within the purview of the FCC, I think that would be really helpful to all of us as the DAC, as the DAC. Thinking about time, we thought each member ideally can keep their response to within 1 minute, given the limited time we have allocated here for the discussion. And it is acceptable if you'd like to pass on the opportunity to respond, but of course we encourage each appointed member of the DAC to share thoughts. Following this, we can, much like we did with the introductions, turn to our ex officio members. And after everyone has had an opportunity to chime in, time permitting, we can also have a period to allow for voting members to make follow-up remarks. And if there's time permitting after that, I have an additional question I can ask to further facilitate some discussion. But I hope that all of that makes sense to people. I don't see anyone. I actually do see one question here. Is Mark, do you have Mark with CPADO? Do you have a question about the process here?
No, sorry.
Great.
I'll wait until it's my turn, but I don't have anything to say at this point. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, well, why don't we jump right in then? Again, it's slightly awkward, but I do happen, my organization happens to be the first the first one listed here because it is alphabetical, ACT, the App Association. But you know, again, I think I really look forward to hearing what all the other members of the DAC have to say, and from our perspective, I think some of the comments that you have heard earlier, including from the acting chairwoman and our colleagues in the CGB, that you know, the experience during the COVID-19 pandemic has brought many facets of life into a remote access situation where they either were partially or not at all before, and it's raised the imperative for disability access, and I think that there are great success stories and great challenges, which I'm sure we'll hear about. That's probably all I would say, and I'm just really pleased to be a part of this group with you all to be able to discuss them and work on them and come up with common solutions. That's all I think I would say. The next group would be the American Council for the Blind.
Thanks, Brian. And
Hi,
again,
this is hello.
sorry, this is Clark. Brian, you called upon ECB, correct?
I did, yes.
Yeah, thank you. For the American Council of the Blind, say our priorities mainly rely around, and I'm trying to keep this to the scope of the DAC and the FCC, but information access, broadband availability and access, and especially within the healthcare space, ensuring that there are accessible user interfaces, and not only for healthcare, but education, employment as well, but accessible user interfaces so that individuals may access and communicate accessibly, whether for remote education, employment, or healthcare.
Wonderful. Thank you. American Foundation for the Blind.
Hi, this is Sarah with the American Foundation for the Blind. I'll say that we agree with what ACB just said, and then throw in a few other things. You know, as work has become a lot more virtual, we're really paying attention to video conferencing accessibility and usability, and that's been a remaining challenge. It's not all, you know, some functions may be accessible, but not all functions, and often we find that a lot of the challenges remaining are on presentation modes or sharing screens, things that are really critical in an employment setting. You know, we also note that during the pandemic, a lot of entertainment has gone virtual, and so continuing to pay attention to audio description certainly is important. You know, we note that there are a lot of technical barriers that people face in accessing, and even though TVs and set-top boxes are substantially more accessible than they used to be, there are a lot of people who don't know that those features exist. And there's still a ways to go to get full usability. Just another note is that we've also seen that there's a lot of need for digital literacy and training that to make full use of the advancements that have been made. And we look forward to continuing the advancements in accessibility and usability, particularly in the employment, educational, and telehealth settings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Apple.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to acknowledge the notes that I saw in the chat from some of the companies who have they fall a little bit further down. I think it was Verizon and TDI who suggested going in reverse order. And I would just say Apple doesn't object. So in the future, if that's what you all would choose to do, please, we really don't object. And we understand what it's like to either be at the front or the end, depending on how you choose to set that up. Building a bit on Sarah's comments about some of the adjustments that we've seen happening at Apple with respect to needs of our customers and how we've adapted specifically in the accessibility context. As everyone shifted to virtual, we saw a number of our customers who were dealing with accessibility challenges have greater needs, or maybe more specific needs than most, in terms of trying to figure out how to restructure their at-home environments, and also trying to see them restructure those environments while dealing with the sort of care responsibilities that a lot of us have in our home life. So to serve that particular need, Apple extended the hours that we provide to our dedicated accessibility support line. We added a number of videos from our accessibility support team, specifically on some of our accessibility tools like Magnifier, the back tap feature, and expanded use of voice control. And then related to connecting virtual spaces and telehealth, just one example that we wanted to highlight that we're sort of particularly proud of and look forward to building on is our work with the Department of Veterans Affairs. They have an app called Mobile Health, let me make sure I get it right, Mobile Health Provider Program, that allows the VA staff to use iPads to access VA's Video Connect platform. And one of the sort of lessons I would say from the pandemic is that we've been working closely with folks who are on the ground, working with folks who are coming in to receive healthcare services, to make sure that those with accessibility challenges can still use all of the tools that we make available to every consumer. And in particular, in the VA program, we saw a need to increase accessibility with respect to vision impaired and or blind vets. And that's something that we've seen really positive feedback on in terms of using our tools. So that's all we would say for now. And I hope I was under a minute. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. The ARC.
The ARC is seeing some of the things that have already been said around access to broadband, also access to devices, accessibility barriers that were out there before are being felt even more strongly now, as we're even more reliant on these technologies. The ARC's chapters provide services to about 1 million people every year, and a lot of them are high touch, in person, at home. And all of those things had to change and shift. And so video conference software, smart home technology, sensors, and other apps and devices that weren't built for this population have not been as helpful as they could be. But with that said, our staff has been heroic in trying to piece together things around the country. Every state, though, has different rules around what they'll fund or not fund with public funding to serve this population. And those rules have been changing, in positive ways over the course of the pandemic. But keeping track of that and finding solutions that work in, say, Texas, and then scaling them out to work in Florida have been difficult given the fluctuating changes in rules. So we're trying to learn from this. We're trying to learn what's happening around the country in terms of these changes to public funding sources that could be used for our population. And we're trying to gather and spread proven models and solutions that our chapters have innovated, really with necessity being the mother of invention, and then trying to learn how to draw lines through these points to come up with themes and principles that we can go back to the states and make recommendations on for getting the most out of virtual service delivery that we've kind of had to figure out over the last few months. And I'm hoping that we can explore these kinds of things at a federal level here in conversations with the DAC.
Thank you very much. Next is AT&T.
Hi, this is Linda Vanderloop at AT&T. AT&T's long-standing commitment to accessibility and the work that we've done with our accessibility and inclusion initiative positioned us well to quickly switch to an inclusive and virtual workforce, as well as continuing to serve our customers and address their needs. We also quickly rolled out a process to make accommodations for our employees to work remotely. And the company is looking at what additional accommodations will be needed for employees returning to the office. This environment has not been without challenges. Network changes and rerouting of traffic was necessary in some instances to keep communications flowing. And we continue to consider the accessibility needs and impacts of our products and services. We understood the importance of communications, and of course, and now it's more critical than ever. And we took steps to make sure that customers were not disconnected from their services if they lost or reduced income. And we gave customer services staff the tools to address the issues that arose and continue to arise. We at AT&T value our participation in the DAC and in the ability to learn from all the DAC members, and we look forward to continued dialogue and what we'll accomplish in this fourth term of the DAC. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bridge Multimedia.
Hi, thank you so much for giving us this chance to share. Bridge Multimedia has had the privilege of being able to manage assistive technology for a wide range of virtual events during the pandemic. And while, yes, we have been very aware of so many challenges that are out there, we also have found a way to raise our ability to better provide assistive technology that people need in these virtual environments. And I just want to highlight two of those. One is integrating the live caption into a data stream that can be instantly recognized by refreshable Braille devices. And the second is using both deaf and hearing ASL interpreters for real-time in-depth discussions. And I would love for us to get a chance to explore at a later point how live emergency information and other live information going out could be automatically encoded with text code so that it could be transcoded real time for Braille, for ASL, for machine generated speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cerebral Palsy and Deaf Organization.
Hello, I'm Mark Hill, and I'm with CPADO. Okay. I'm not going to repeat what's already been stated, but what I will go ahead and say is that it is important to focus on three key areas: interpreters being available at hospitals. Secondly, nursing homes. So for example, if somebody did get COVID, what would they do in that situation? Would they need to use VRI, video remote interpreting? Or VRS? They will have challenges using those types of flat technology. That can be quite a struggle. It is important to have functional equivalence with accessibility as well, especially related to communications. Some individuals who are sick or perhaps unable to sign well or may struggle to produce sign language. Really, those individuals, the interpreter would struggle greatly trying to communicate with a person in that situation. So it is very important to use CDIs, certified deaf interpreters. It is very important because they do offer that level of functional equivalency, same as other forms of communication. And last, but most importantly, is related to technology. Pictures need to be clear. They cannot be fuzzy or blurry. I know that it's better in the long run, and in the long run, it will be better. Thank you, and I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Mark. Thank you very much. City of Boston.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So the City of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I also work for, have been working on a number of areas as it regards to some of the same issues that the FCC are working on. One is access to emergency information during the pandemic, particularly the governor's press conferences, the mayor's press conferences. So we have been trying to ensure that they all have captions and ASL and whenever possible CDI certified deaf interpreters, and we've been doing pretty well there. As far as we also have to work on making sure the images when they are provided during the press conferences are described to the blind community. We still have some work to do there because it's not always easy to tell the governor or mayor you're not describing things right. So, but we're working on that. And then access to broadband has become vitally important because with all the school closings, all the parents are home with their children, and we need to make sure that they have access to education. And that's been an issue. And the third thing that I've been working on quite a bit is employment, because a lot of people with disabilities need structure when they come into the office. And particularly if they struggle with executive functioning or they're from the intellectual or hidden disability community, how do we provide that structure when they're at home without no supervision through the use of technology and broadband and still make them productive employees? And that's been something we're working on also.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Clear captions.
Hey everybody, Mike Streck with Clear Captions here. I think from our company's perspective, one of the things I believe the DAC would be interested in, and I think is worthy of analysis, is what the pandemic has had from an impact perspective on the ability to reach new customers or individuals that need access to IPCTS, which is what, we're an IPCTS provider, but I believe it falls across various forms of relay. Typically in a normal environment, a lot of our customers are seniors and they have a lot of social clubs, events they go to, and they get a lot of their communication through that. What we've seen through this pandemic is because they're a high risk group, they have stayed home more. They have relied on their telephone more than ever to stay connected with people. And if the pandemic has resulted in people losing that ability to access communication because we're unable to see them, we're unable to contact them, they're not going out of their home, they're not aware of the services available to them. I would think it is, the word access keeps coming up, and it's critical to maintain a level of access to their telecommunications, to the news, to info, to friends, family, doctors. And I would be curious if the commission and the fund administrator, the TRS fund administrator, had the ability to perform some type of analysis to show whether or not there was an impact on the number of people that were being reached and who were gaining access to these vital services because the pandemic basically limited their ability to do so. I think that's very worthy of analysis and consideration. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Great. Comcast.
Hi, everybody. Tom Lidkowski with Comcast. And over the pandemic, obviously, everybody's talked about the need for broadband access, and Comcast operates Internet Essentials, one of the country's largest broadband connectivity programs for people on low incomes or fixed incomes, and that continues to grow. We've now connected it into schools, and so schools can help kids get connected for virtual learning, things of that nature. A couple of the other things that we've done during the pandemic, one in particular, we've increased access to our ASL call center. This is where deaf customers can directly connect to deaf agents and have a direct one-on-one communication with the deaf agent. We've seen some very positive feedback from deaf customers on that service, and we look to do more in that area. Someone mentioned the importance of entertainment during the pandemic, and we did a little bit more this year, offering live audio description on two major events. The first was the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That was the first time we offered live audio description there. And more recently, live audio description of the NBC News coverage on the presidential inauguration. Obviously, folks are working from home. We see it in the increased use of our network, and people are certainly needing access to video conferencing and the like. I think for us, we'll be interested to hear what other members want to work on, have to say, and we're happy to collaborate where we can to move accessibility forward for all.
Thank you so much. Great. Communication services for the deaf.
Hello. Let me see if I can get my video started. There we go. Hello, thank you. There's been so much information that has come at a fast pace throughout this pandemic that it's hard for anybody to keep up with it, but the deaf community and hard of hearing community, most especially, because they don't always have the right access to that information. Every time an interpreter is added to a broadcast, equal access to communication is normalized and it's reinforced. Not only is the immediate impact of communicating with people with disabilities realized, but it normalizes access for people without disabilities so that they provide equal access when given the opportunity. So we look forward to hopefully increased access to a plethora of information coming from a lot of different areas, government, CDC, et cetera, that is more accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Consumer Technology Association.
Hi, this is Rachel with CTA. Many of the providers of these communication platforms that have been so important during the past year are members of CTA, and they continue to innovate in this space, and we are happy to see that and look forward to seeing more of what they continue to do in the future. And I would also just point out that CTA's market research team does different studies and surveys every year, looking at forecasts for what to expect in the industry. And unsurprisingly, in 2020, we saw a surge in the usage of these types of platforms, and that team continues to those efforts, and I'm sure we will continue to see more use of these platforms in the future, and we look forward to working with all of you in this space to make sure that all consumers are able to use these platforms. to their full potential. Thank you.
Thanks. Excellent. Thank you. Convo Communications.
Hello. I'm Amanda from Convo. Couple quick things. Some people have already mentioned, of course, broadband access being so critical at this time. People who previously may have used their video phone via their internet connection at work, which is a high-speed broadband connection, and may have moved back to working from home, no longer have access to that same high-speed broadband connection and struggle with access. Outreach efforts as well have been impacted. So we are now focusing in more on social media. Of course, we're trying to be innovative and trying to be creative, but that does end up leaving out a large group of people who are not on Facebook, who are not on Instagram or what have you. And we used to reach those individuals through in-person events. And now we've seen a disconnect in terms of how we reach those populations who aren't necessarily as closely online. To add another not new issue, but one that has become an increasing issue is with registration. So people really do depend on the phone now. They need phone access, and any kind of delay in getting phone access is very, very painful. It really hurts. So both personal registrations and the enterprise registrations. We've got people who maybe previously could engage and get along in person at work with a combination of lip reading and writing or what have you. And now at home, when we're talking about more telecommunications, making calls have an entirely different experience, but registration is something that can be delayed because you have to, of course, get their POC information at work amongst all the other documentations required. So it can be a not fantastic experience. And that then does potentially influence their boss's perspective of them, which is a side effect of that. And we have seen deaf users of TRS directly impacted for sure during the pandemic. I've got a whole list of things, but I will just call it there for now.
Thank you very much. It's great input. CTIA.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah Leggin. I'm the alternate representative for CTIA. Good to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss these important issues. The focus on COVID-19 and lessons learned for the accessibility community really couldn't be more timely. Wireless connectivity has become a central part of daily life for people with disabilities, helping to break down communications barriers. As COVID prompted sudden and significant changes in daily life for consumers, including people with disabilities, wireless connectivity really became much more crucial, and the wireless industry rose to the occasion. America's wireless networks handled unprecedented surges in mobile voice and data traffic driven by COVID-19. And we have more stats on those incredible changes in usage patterns on CTIA's website. But the wireless industry rose to the challenge, and that's thanks to policy that facilitates access to spectrum and favors industry investment, as well as through legislation like the CVAA that promotes innovation and accessible wireless products and services through a flexible framework. So as the wireless industry continues to ensure connectivity in the face of the ongoing pandemic, they activated emergency response plans, expanded capacity by deploying more spectrum, and continue to identify areas where we can better support customers. We've also focused on enhancing our services and offerings to meet the moment. So at the end of last year at CTIA's Virtual Accessibility Outreach Initiative Forum, we discussed many of these efforts and heard from advocates and experts in the accessibility community about how people with disabilities are relying on wireless connectivity. Panels discussed how the emergence of COVID really led to companies increasing many services and functionalities, including in video conferencing, as many of the other DAC members have noted. As well, through proactive efforts and innovative partnerships, the wireless industry has also enhanced existing initiatives, including to distribute new wireless hotspots to students throughout the country and supporting the enhanced use of telehealth and telepresence to provide daily care and daily services to people with disabilities. So looking ahead, obviously the work is not done. And we will continue to support our industry and advocate partners to enhance and innovate on these solutions, to continue ensuring that everyone has the tools they need to live, work, and communicate both during and after the pandemic. And Congress and the FCC are focused on this too, of course. With mobile wireless services being one of the most effective ways to provide broadband to eligible consumers, providers of wireless service are well equipped to efficiently use the FCC's new emergency broadband benefit to make it easier for low-income consumers to afford broadband and to help close the homework gap. If we get those program rules right, people with disabilities will also be able to apply these benefits to mobile wireless services and devices. Given the inherent accessibility features of wireless, we'll also continue to urge the FCC to ensure that both the emergency broadband benefit and the E-rate programs can enable consumers to choose mobile wireless solutions, enabling everyone, including people with disabilities, to make sure they have the tools to stay connected. So thanks very much for the opportunity to discuss these issues. We look forward to exploring these and other issues on this term, and we're grateful for the opportunity to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Deafblind Citizens in Action.
Thank you. This is George Stern speaking. Just want to also join the chorus thanking the FCC for the timely launching and thoughts about this program of the Emergency Broadband Benefits Program, particularly for our population. Deafblind people and disabled people in general are very financially precarious, particularly at this time. And so anything that makes that promises to make financial barriers to such an important tool as broadband access less is a good thing. So a lot of what we focus on, the American Council representative already mentioned, it just gets a little bit more specific for us because, again, deafblindness is one of those consumer groups that, as Apple would say, has very specific and very variable customer needs that can vary depending on where we fall on the deafblindness spectrum, and frankly can depend on how deafblindness chooses to express itself at any given minute, any given day. And so, you know, we've seen concerns around, even as all of these accommodations are being made and companies are rising to the occasion and making things more accessible, there's always a niche that got overlooked. And one of the big ones for us is people who primarily depend on Braille for access to real-time communication. And this issue comes up even in the question of face-to-face communication in this time when social distancing is still necessary. What is a Braille user to do? What is someone who primarily depends on tactile methods of communication supposed to do? And so we are still hoping that companies in the industry are going to devote some significant thought and research to those questions. Also, there's an issue of a skills gap, both generational, because younger people tend to have stronger technological skills than some of our senior population, but also just in terms of pure experience. Some people have had access to devices longer than others. And so, where can we find partnership between industry and consumer groups that help close some of these skills gaps so that everyone can benefit equally, whether they're old, young, have had an iPhone or Android forever, or maybe have just gotten their accessibility device. And then lastly, I would, let's see, I think that's actually it for Deafblind Citizens in Action for now, but we look forward to continuing to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. DeCapta.
Hello, everybody. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here. As so many others have mentioned, DCAPTA has faced some of the same challenges and has seen, for example, the accessibility of some meeting platforms, telehealth, such as enabling blind and deafblind individuals to receive healthcare, to schedule vaccines, tests for COVID, et cetera. We've been working hard to increase access to audio description for everyone, but specifically for Hispanics with disabilities. And one of the biggest challenges here is the fact that audio description in Spanish is not mandated or regulated. So seeking funding sources is always a challenge, but we're doing it, and we're doing our best. So you know, one of the other challenges that we're seeing is just with so much being remote, being connected is especially important. So making sure, you know, so accessibility of these mediums is especially important this last year. We also wanted to let you know of our new app, GoCC for All, to provide accessibility of TV and emergency alerts to blind and deafblind individuals using refreshable Braille. Super exciting, with funds from the Department of Health and Human Services and supported by FEMA, Deafblind Citizens in Action, Perkins School, et cetera. So that's all that I have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hamilton Relay.
Hello, I apologize for the pause there. This is Beth Slough with Hamilton Relay. Thank you for this facilitated discussion today. It's very helpful and informative. Throughout this pandemic, we've experienced similar challenges as have already been shared here today. And we certainly appreciate how timely the Commission has addressed the IPCTS providers' concerns during this pandemic. We look forward to serving on this DAC and working to find solutions to accessibility related issues that are identified by customers and organizations serving people with disabilities. And I would like to defer the rest of my time to the consumer organizations to share their experiences and challenges that we might learn from. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing Loss Association of America.
This has actually been a very good discussion. I hope we're going to continue it later. I have 3 issues that are really large for us. We're getting a lot of consumers coming to Hearing Loss Association of America talking about captioning on video conferencing platforms. It just doesn't happen. There's a lot of missing information, either it's not there at all, or poor quality. So I'm hearing from employees, teachers, students, people who really need access to these captions are not always getting them. And then some I heard from might be valuable to this committee is an idea that they came up with, but I'm not sure we can do, which is some relay platforms, IPCTS platforms are now available on the web. So I could I could use the captions for myself on the web, or perhaps I could share my screen and let others. But I don't know if that's permissible, because somebody who's viewing that may not be registered in the same way I am. So I think that's an issue that we might want to take up at the DAC, or maybe the FCC staff want to look at that. And that also is, again, these video platforms, I can't go without mentioning telemedicine, which totally forgets having access, whether bringing in an interpreter or captions. The other issue for us is we're still getting people coming to us, especially in smaller communities, and looking for news programming. And then you're looking at emergency, their governor coming to do a conference, and it's not on the pandemic and it's not captioned, or it's poorly captioned and not understandable. So that we're still seeing. And then when it goes over to the internet, if it's live or near live, sometimes the quality suffers. And finally, the third thing, given broadband access is really an issue now, we want to make a plea that not forget seniors, because often seniors are an underserved group that are not getting the access that they need, and they don't know how, and they really need help. So I'm hoping that broadband access will look at that community too. Thank you so much. I tried to make it brief. I know there are lots of other people.
Thank you. IBM.
Hi, Mary Jo Mueller again. From an IBM perspective, we really haven't encountered too many challenges with respect to accessible communications during the pandemic. You know, we're a worldwide technology company, so we're pretty well versed in working remotely and with people around the world. So video conferencing and remote communication are pretty standard for us. And as far as you know, our persons with disabilities, our employees with disabilities, we encourage them and our clients to engage us anytime they have issues during this time, so we can work collaboratively together to come up with solutions and provide any necessary accommodations whenever they're needed. So in that regard, I didn't have anything for the FCC to engage on. However, as the previous person had just stated, there are some noticeable things that are happening as far as our employees with disabilities in their personal lives. They have observed a lot of inconsistency in interpretive services for local municipalities, state level pandemic or emergency briefings, et cetera, which makes it difficult for them to get the information that they need. IBM advocates that all federal, state, and local pandemic briefings and emergency communications be accessible for everyone, and regardless of your communication ability. And that's really all I have for.
Thank you. InnoCaption.
Hi, everyone. This is Christina Duarte. I'm going to try to keep this really quick. 2 issues that the InnoCaption teams flagged is an increase in consumers on social media platforms and employers, doctors' offices talking about concerns regarding HIPAA and telecommunications relay services. So people not being able to get access through their employers. The commission obviously did issue a public notice about this in June 2004, but we think that providing an open, public-facing website, maybe to provide more easy access for individuals to see that they can provide these services would be helpful. And additionally, telecommunications access for incarcerated individuals with disabilities, specifically relay services. Those individuals have historically not had access, but during the pandemic, the communication deprivation is getting more significant, especially considering that people are unable to visit with isolation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. National Association for State Relay Administration.
Hello, this is Travis Doherty. I'm with NASRA. We have noticed state relay administrators. We have noticed that. Is everything okay? I'm sorry. Am I in the wrong time? Am I incorrect in going at this point? Or is everything okay? Shall I continue? Okay, I will go ahead and continue then. We have noticed several years that TRS minute usage has been decreasing. Until all of a sudden the pandemic and COVID hit, we saw a spike in use. The numbers went up rapidly because everybody is staying at home and needs to make phone calls, working with family, friends, for a variety of different reasons. We've seen that number spike. However, we've seen it going a bit back to normal, but we have noticed that a new pain has been appearing. First of all, in rural areas, access to services to be able to have access to the internet and so forth, they're relying on analog services. They do not have great service in that area. Broadband plans are being talked about, and hopefully that will be able to solve that problem. We've also noticed that the broadband plans, as far as internet providers switching from analog to digital, that transition, many people have been reaching out about phones not working anymore, captioned phones not working anymore. People are now making calls without these services working. So they do need to do that transition to IPCTS, but that has been happening lately as well. Thirdly, we are now encouraging the use of remote conference captioning, which includes free captioning services provided by some state relay. They are able to offer free captions. For instance, on a Zoom platform, they do provide free captioning services for people to use. And we are seeing a huge increase in that as well, because now everybody is using virtual meetings, of course, to have their daily discussions. And captions are so critical for accessibility. We have captions here today. You know, we needed to wait for just a moment at the beginning to make sure that was all sorted. So we have seen that significant increase. Finally, we've also noticed that TTY and TRS use has been declining. We have new relay services, which is RTT, real-time text. We have some barriers with that. We know that some of you, we are working with some of you to see how we can overcome those barriers. We haven't been able to get RTT pass through in some localities as far as relay services, but we are working to solve this challenge. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Next is the National Association of Broadcasters.
Hi, everyone. This is Larry Walk from the NAB. Our main representative, Josh Pila, had to drop off, but he sends his apologies. I'll try to keep this brief. Thanks for this opportunity. Just want to point out that, you know, radio and television station broadcasters are in a unique position. They take pride in their role, their unique role to provide sort of a megaphone for government authorities and health and public safety and other organizations that have had to provide needed information about the pandemic. In many ways, your local news, the local news you get from radio and TV is, you know, your main source for trusted and objective news and information about the pandemic. We all know that there can be disinformation out there on the internet. So many people have turned to their local news stations for helpful, unbiased information and education about the pandemic. However, unlike a lot of other services, a lot of what radio and TV stations have to do cannot be done remotely. Broadcasters, reporters, they have to attend press conferences and other live news events in person to provide live on the spot news coverage. And of course, this has been challenging during the pandemic, given COVID safety rules and local protocols and curfews and social distancing. Those have all raised obstacles to broadcasters doing their jobs. But despite these obstacles, you know, they've done their best to try to keep viewers and listeners safe and informed and healthy. For example, they've worked hard to try to make sure that the White House and governors and other press conferences about the pandemic are accessible with captions and audio description where appropriate, and lots of other local news events that might take place at a hospital or the mayor or something like that. However, as Carl Richardson of Boston mentioned, sometimes it's not in the hands of broadcasters whether something is whether there's an interpreter on the stage or something is captioned, but broadcasters are trying to do everything in their power to push, you know, these state and local officials to make sure that the news they're providing is accessible and that we can and that broadcasters can pass that along. Just by way of example, we worked with the National Association on the Deaf to try to improve the presence of ASL interpreters at news conferences in New York and New Jersey and even at the White House. Apart from that stuff, broadcasters have also launched their own news and information campaigns to provide education to people about how to stay safe during the pandemic. And now many of them have turned to providing information on how and where to get information about getting the vaccine, trying to promote trust in the vaccine. And then again, from non-content kinds of angles, they've also, broadcasters, they play a leading role in just raising money on the ground for people in need during the pandemic. Coat drives and hunger drives, helping people get their rent paid, promoting local businesses and restaurants. A lot of TV stations have partnered with schools to broadcast educational lessons from teachers. So they're trying to do the best they can and help out. And separate from news, just as you can imagine, with more people at home, there's been more of a demand for entertainment on television. But at the same time, given all the safety protocols, it's been more difficult for TV stations to produce new content. So they've really been in a bind, but as time has gone by and with lots of care and caution, stations and broadcasters are figuring out a way to produce more and more new content in response to that demand. So, broadcasters are there trying to do their best in terms of news and information education, and also trying to meet the ramped up demand for entertainment. And with that, I'll just say thank you again for the opportunity to serve on another iteration of the DAC, and look forward to working with you on this term. Thank you.
Well, thanks. National Association for the Deaf, pardon me.
Hello, this is Zainab speaking with NAD. There are 4 things that I did want to talk about and go over quickly. The first issue that I wanted to mention is the gap and the lack of ASL access to COVID briefings. We may have mentioned that a bit already, but I do appreciate the partnership that we have with NAB on this. And even around the responsible entities to provide interpreters, they are supposed to. TV stations often do not show the ASL interpreter picture in picture. That's simply not there. Or when they do show it, it is very small, very tiny in the corner, or it is covered by a logo or another graphic. There's no standardization for those picture-in-pictures. Secondly, deaf-blind users are very isolated during the pandemic. They experience barriers to relay services, the user use and registration to get into the database. That registration process does need to be as simple as possible and user-friendly. Thirdly, is in regards to telehealth and telework and remote education. All of those have been increased during the pandemic, obviously. However, we're trying to make sure that the access is as easy as possible for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. And that should really be built in. Accessibility tools should really be built in into that system. They should be the baseline abilities and features that should be built into any platform. The last thing I wanted to mention is broadband access and access to broadband. For those who live in rural areas or who are low income or are senior citizens, they cannot access telework, remote education, telehealth. They're simply unable to. They're left out of it, unlike the rest of us. And even for those who do have broadband at home, there still is competition. People in the same house using internet or watching videos all day. Same thing for deaf and hard of hearing users who do really rely on video to communicate. They're not able to simply switch off the video and use voice only. So it does consume quite a bit of bandwidth. And so we do need to deal with these gaps. Plus, there are serious gaps in Lifeline as well and funding there. So there are serious issues in regards to broadband access. Those are the 4 things I wanted to mention. And I know that every organization is putting out their priorities, but I do think that we will be able to have a more in-depth discussion on this later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. National Black Deaf Advocates. Who's Sherlock? Okay. Maybe we can come back if she's here. And I shouldn't move on, but next is the National Emergency Number Association.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Richard Ray with the National Emergency Numbering Association. Also, just to let you know, my co-chair of the Accessibility Committee is Donna Platt, and we were discussing a variety of different issues. We had a list out here, many of which have already been discussed today. So I can condense my list down to four specific points. The first being 211 and 311 and TRS, telecommunications relay services, and how those integrate. Some people are able to make those calls using 3-digit numbers for additional information or support or resources. However, TRS users have to use a 10-digit number in order to reach the appropriate agency in their specific county, rather than their relay services, rather than their regional center. That is one. Secondly, is picture-in-picture, PIP. It would be nice to have some kind of standard. Sometimes the picture is so tiny that you're unable to see the interpreter. So it would be nice to have standardization in that area. Also, sometimes you do have captions that then cover over the interpreter, and you are unable to see the interpreter whatsoever because those captions are covering over that picture-in-picture. Thirdly, video meeting platforms. They are not user-friendly for deaf individuals or deaf-blind people and those who are hard of hearing, especially when we are relying upon sign language interpreters and captioning. Now, in addition, when people who are deaf, so for instance, here on this call, meeting in this specific meeting, I have to scroll through a bunch of different videos to find the deaf individual who is signing. And that is also another challenge and something that hopefully we can look into closely. Next, all live press conferences are using social media need to improve or provide captioning, which includes live captioning. And that is a challenge. I mean, we can identify that as a challenge. The last point I have is wireless emergency alerts. They need to be improved to provide communication access or information for people who are deaf and who rely upon sign language, American Sign Language. I'm not going to say American Sign Language. I will just say people who rely upon sign language to receive information. There is some potential there, really. So those were the 5 points that I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, let me see here. I apologize if is National Federation. I'm sorry, National Federation for the Blind next, I believe.
Yes, National Federation of the Blind. Yes.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm Everett Bacon, and many of the things have been discussed at length, and so I'm not going to try to repeat any of that or put a different light on it. The one thing I will say that it would be great if the DAC could look at, we have noticed amongst our members that getting access through their communication tools to information about testing or vaccine distribution has been very difficult for blind and low vision Americans, mainly because blind individuals, they don't exactly know where to get that information, and they might be going to a website that doesn't have full accessibility because so many different county health departments have their own websites that they've been putting out, and so it's really difficult, and it'd be awesome to find ways that the FCC could use the communication tools to notify individuals of testing sites, testing centers, or vaccine distribution centers, as it has been done in other ways, using the mobile phone to learn about if you have been infected or you might be close to being infected of someone. So those are some things that I think would be outstanding to look for. The National Federation of the Blind did a lot to help blind Americans across the country. With our membership, we purchased Zoom accounts for every single affiliate so they could use that. Zoom is accessible for blind Americans. We've also worked hard to provide captioning for our deaf-blind individuals and making sure that captioning can work on their Braille displays. So those are some things that we've tried to do as best we can. I could go on, but I know how we're addressed for time. So thank you.
Thanks very much. NCTA.
Thanks, Brian. I'll be quick. I just wanted to say that the cable industry continues to be committed to, and we've dedicated substantial resources to serving all audiences with the best experience possible. And with the pandemic, we've noticed an unprecedented amount of content being consumed, both in terms of video and online services. And I think this discussion was really great in terms of gathering feedback on specific experiences. So thank you. And we are looking forward to working with everyone here to advance feasible proposals and recommendations that help consumers. Thanks.
Wonderful. Perkins School for the Blind.
Hi, this is Kristen from Perkins. The challenges for broadband access, software access, and accessible information have been covered. I would like to use my brief minute to highlight a few consumer stories from the I Can Connect National Deafblind Equipment Program consumers that I've heard from trainers and consumers. There was a 7-year-old girl who used her iPad to access her speech therapy from home instead of in person, and using teletherapy gave her the confidence to use her equipment and practice her speech skills. And her mother reports she independently was motivated to contact family and friends to communicate from home. Another one was a grandfather who met his grandchild for the first time using a video conference on his laptop to connect with his family. And a consumer who was in a nursing home and couldn't have any visitors due to COVID restrictions, learned how to use FaceTime on her iPhone to connect with her family members. And after she recovered from being sick with COVID, she called her trainer to thank her for providing that lifeline that she needed. So that's all.
Well, thank you. Sorensen.
Hello, this is Mike with Sorensen again, and appreciate the opportunity to contribute. One of the things that I think was really important that we learned from the COVID experience is the power of the waiver. There were some huge problems that were being faced by consumers using all forms of relay service. And many of the FCC team that's on the call today, right up to the 8th floor, partnered with the community, and also the providers to be able to find out what waivers were needed to solve problems and clear hurdles. And I think that there are often times where there are things that need to be acted on quickly for consumers of relay services. And this method of using waivers, I hope, will be one that we can look to on an ongoing basis, and then build a record and make a more permanent decision so that the immediate needs can be met. We've heard several people talk about the increase in video conferencing and that's happened. Non-relay users embraced video conferencing modes of communication like never before, and a lot of people learned very quickly how to use it. I think an unintended consequence affecting users of relay service is that oftentimes some of the free versions of these platforms omitted a 10-digit number to be able to access the conferencing. It was all IP based. And we've heard from users of our services that it's made it unable for them to participate because in the past, there would be a 10-digit number offered for conferencing calls, and they would use a communication assistant or video interpreter to be able to participate in those conversations. And that's one that probably we need to still figure out a solution to going forward. But again, kudos to the FCC for their quick action in solving problems and clearing hurdles that we faced early on, and look forward to participating in the DAC to continue to solve problems going forward. Thanks for including us.
Wonderful. Telecommunications for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Hi, everyone. This is Kaika here with TDI. Our concerns are specifically about inclusion during the pandemic, and obviously they have to do with the tele-platforms as well as broadband. There are, of course, people before me who have mentioned some of the same concerns that TDI shares that have to do with the interfacing of those platforms, especially teleconferencing and telehealth platforms. In addition, those tele-platforms particularly have a large accessibility gap for accessibility tools, like incorporating relay services, whether that be interpreters or closed captioning availability. Many do not even offer closed captioning or have it, but is built into a higher rate membership or a larger tier plan. Furthermore, there is no tele-platform, or rather all do allow for a call-in, but those are not all interoperable with relay services. The result of that issue really leads to the second concern that we have about broadband access, specifically the bandwidth needs for increased bandwidth. Deaf and hard of hearing people in a household find themselves competing with one another for the use of bandwidth, whether it be for school, work, or relay services, which can cause stress on the network and the household's communication needs. Finally, with communicating information over the news and broadcast media, we have received an increasing number of reports of closed captioning issues, both on web and broadcast television programming. Some of you probably have already heard, for example, Amanda Gorman's inauguration poem at the inauguration ceremony in January. There were some captioning issues there. We also have learned that several of the top 25 markets are also switching over to using ASR generated closed captioning. That's all I have from me. Thank you.
Thanks. T-Mobile.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. This is a great discussion, and this is very helpful feedback. Very helpful feedback. Like many others in our industry, I mean, these unprecedented times have impacted our employees and customers. And here at T-Mobile, I mean, we joined our counterparts in taking several significant measures toward fulfilling our critical role of keeping everyone connected during this time. As part of our efforts to ensure that all of our customers stay connected and that our network remain fully operational, we immediately honed in on our service offerings and network operations just to ensure that capacity was in place to handle the adjustments in traffic given the shift in technology use. T-Mobile is proud to have been a staunch supporter of the FCC's Keep Americans Connected initiative, which focused on making sure that residential and small business customers who were financially impacted by the pandemic wouldn't lose service. The majority of our customers on plans already have unlimited talk, text, and data. And our home internet customers already have unlimited plans as well. However, we identified areas where we could better support our customers who may have been financially impacted by the pandemic and made further adjustments to certain plans. Looking ahead, we're definitely taking inventory, assessing and devising plans around our policy priorities and our internal initiatives as well. At this time, we want to ensure that we're taking the appropriate steps to best support our new way of life and to ensure that all of our customers are able to connect and stay connected. Thank you for allowing me to share these highlights.
Great, thanks. Verizon.
Thank you, Brian. This is Zach Bastian speaking from Verizon. What a wonderful discussion. It's tough to go late in the alphabet after so many great participants and a lot of really moving and informative stories about people's personal experiences during the pandemic. A lot of the things that Verizon has been up to in this situation mirror a lot of our partner companies within telecom, our other ISPs out there. We've had significant commitments in offering discounts and different ways to keep people connected. We suspended disconnects and late fees for customers that notified us that they were having trouble in the ability to pay their bills due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've also done a lot of programming and outreach specific around COVID. We upskilled and reskilled hundreds of employees that were thousands of our employees, that were previously in retail operations to customer service roles to make sure that they could stay employed, safe, and healthy during the pandemic. We've been very involved in helping school districts connect through negotiated rates for whole states and regions. So there's a lot of different ways we've been engaged. I'm really excited to talk going forward about different proposals that we have on a more long-term solution to keeping America connected. There's a report called Accelerating America that I've spoken with a lot of you about already, but is definitely our policy theme for this year, wanting to think of a big comprehensive solution to get people online and keep them online as that becomes more and more just the daily reality that we live with. I think a lot of the comments that we've heard today is something that I just wanted to end on in the spirit of, as much as I miss seeing your faces, I miss having lunch together, I miss the events that we would hold and share these perspectives face to face. But it's also a good time to remember of all the folks that are able to attend something like this and can participate in something like this, whereas an in-person event would not include them. There are many people that couldn't travel to do the things that we took for granted. There are many people that forum just simply isn't comfortable for them. So as much as I look forward to getting back to those in-person things and seeing your faces, we should continue to maintain this digital element to make sure those people can stay enfranchised with these kinds of activities. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks very much. And ZP Better Together.
Hi, everyone. I guess I am last, but hopefully not least. This is Greg Leibach with ZP. Next time, I think we should open with ZP. You can get me out of the way. We'll go reverse alphabetical order. We had three things that ZP wanted to highlight that we've been doing to support the accessibility needs of the community of late. There are two that preceded the pandemic and one that we undertook during the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we established the Complete Home Package program, distributing devices to consumers who needed access to video-based communications from anywhere, not just locked into their television screen, but anywhere they might be. We got a lot of criticism with that approach, but ultimately that business model has really helped benefit many of those who couldn't necessarily afford to get laptops or iPads or what have you, especially deaf minors, those who now find themselves having to stay home during the pandemic and have been able to make use of that equipment for their school, but in addition to being able to communicate over video relay service and for point-to-point calling as well. Second, we are also the first company that offered the interpreter from home program, which I believe 2017, so almost 3 years prior to the onset of the pandemic, and again got a lot of criticism at the time about allowing interpreters to work from home. But because we had a large number of interpreters who were already working from home, when the pandemic hit us, we were very quickly able to pivot. And as Michael Maddox said, I also really appreciate the FCC's collaboration in quickly developing and issuing a waiver so that we could transfer from our call centers to in-home remote without jeopardizing anyone's health or safety. And we were able to make that change very rapidly. Because of that, we found ourselves prepared and ready to offer service continually throughout, both before and after and during the pandemic, through our at-home interpreting program. Lastly, I also want to say that many who don't necessarily, especially particularly those who may not be seeing their boss or their colleagues during video calls, added a new app, CIVO, wherein a deaf person will be able to see both the relay interpreter and the hearing person on the other end of their call, and vice versa. So you're effectuating a three-way call between their VRS interpreter and their hearing counterpart. Many of the issues are very similar that we've had. These video conferencing platforms are not compatible and interoperable with the VRS platforms. Ideally, one would be able to plug in a VRS interpreter to GoToMeeting, to Zoom, and so forth, and pull in a VRS interpreter right there. Right now, the way this is set up, there's a very complicated system where you have to have 2 different devices and so forth. It's just not user-friendly the way it exists today. So I certainly have more things, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share the ZP experience with you all.
Thanks very much. And I realized we do have our ex officio members here, but I also realized that we're 30 minutes over time, and I know I want to be respectful of all the committee members. So I hope it's okay with our ex officio non-voting members that we close this facilitated discussion here. Again, we're just us being pressed for time. I think everything that you all have shared here is excellent. It's great feedback. It's a great start to the work ahead. And there's lots of commonalities here and lots of ways to work together. I think that's really obvious, and I'm really energized by everything that I've heard. So thank all of you. I really thank all of you. The next item here is public participation. So I should ask Deborah if anyone from the public has made a comment.
Yes, we do, and I'm going to do my best to summarize this. I know we're certainly over schedule with the proceedings here, so I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. But first, I want to give a quick thank you to every single member for sharing what has been going on during the pandemic, both pro and con here. And it's overwhelming to see all that, and I appreciate so much all that you've had to share. With that said, yes, we did receive some public comments here. I've got 2 certainly that I'm going to share. First, we've received multiple written statements that have to do with electromagnetic sensitivity and radio frequency or RF exposure. And so we're going to address and respond to all of those at once. First, we want to thank all of you for contacting us with these radio frequency exposure questions and issues, and we appreciate you sharing those concerns. The FCC shares that concern that federal regulations protect the health of the public with respect to exposure to RF emissions in all locations. The policy of the FCC with regards to environmental RF emissions was developed to ensure that FCC regulated transmitters do not expose the public to levels of RF energy that are considered by organizations to expert on human health to be potentially harmful. Since the FCC is not a health and safety agency, we can't necessarily give a direct answer to some of that. If you do want more information, you can certainly look at our webpage. It's www.fcc.gov/general/radio- frequency dash safety dash 0. That is the number 0. The second comment we got is from Dorothy McQueen, who had said that we're working to develop local accommodations with disability infrastructures and technologies, along with educational and educational investments. For example, Texas has a major weather problem that is not that is a risk for people with disabilities. Illinois has a large disability population, and a lot of infrastructure problems there as well. So our response to that is that question, to the extent that it does have to do with broadband, I don't know that we can necessarily answer that. The FCC is certainly constantly trying to improve and upgrade broadband and network connectivity everywhere. And those are the public comments. I can turn it back to Brian for closing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. So closing remarks are, for me, are very brief because I'm standing in the way of overtime meeting ending. But once again, just very honored to be a part of the DAC with all of you and appreciate your participation and your comments and your thoughts today. I think and also, you know, the input that we got from our colleagues at FCC and Acting Chair Rosenworcel, also extremely helpful. I really look forward to working with all of you over this next term, and congratulate you all on being a part of this really collaborative community. And I'm sure that Isidore shares the same views. Not to speak for him, but I know I'm pretty sure that he does. So I think with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Actually, I hope I didn't miss everyone, but I did want to make sure that everyone is aware of the next tentative date for our second meeting is May 27th. Again, tentative, but I want people to potentially hold that date for now.
Thank you. As soon as you wait, I knew I forgot it. Thank you, Deborah. Thanks all. Okay, then. Thanks, everyone.
All right. This is Richard. Thanks, Brian.